Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. So today's session is an opportunity for any of you that have questions about your business, really about any part of your business. Let's not be topic specific today, but if there's any challenges you're going through that are unique or that you don't have an answer for and not sure what to do, you're welcome to ask me and I'll try and answer it for you today. I think, one of the best ways of learning is learning from other business owners, learning from people that have been through the same path as you, started their own businesses, grown their own businesses. And I think that is some of the best learning. And this is why I like mastermind groups and mastermind meetings. The reason I like them is because it gives the business owners or us business owners an opportunity to share some of our experience, to share some of our knowledge, and to share some of our advice that we've learned over the years. I was thinking about it this morning. One of the biggest challenges some of us face as business owners is we don't really know what we're doing right or wrong. And I was thinking of an example, on main streets in many different cities and towns all over the world. Sometimes all you want as a business owner is just some honest, straightforward advice. Imagine if a bunch of us got together and, walked up and down a main street and gave other business owners, or business owners that on the same main street as us, some different advice on a bit of marketing, on a bit of selling, on a bit of merchandising, on customer service. Imagine how we could all benefit each other from, all benefit from that advice. And I encourage you to keep learning from other business owners. Whatever opportunity you have to learn from other business owners, I encourage you to take that. For those of you that haven't met me before, my name is Andrew Patricio, and I've always been a business owner. But for the last 25 or so years, I've been educating, training, and trying to inspire business owners to build a successful business. And when you spend so much time with business owners, you learn so many different things, and it makes the work I do so much fun and so rewarding. And I think one of the things that I've learned is that we can learn so much from each other. So what I'm going to discuss today, I'm going to focus on cash flow. I'll put a couple of slides together. But just remember, if you've got any questions about any part of your business, feel free to ask and I'll try and answer it. I, for example, was having a discussion yesterday with a business owner, and he's using ChatGPT to in his business, and he was saying how brilliant it is for small business owners. And these are some of the things that you learn, when you hang around with other business owners. You learn different things, and also try and find a community of supportive people that can help you grow your business. But when it comes to cash flow, some of the things that immediately come to mind as a business owner is, how do I solve this problem? On Tuesday, I shared with you, the way I create a cash flow forecast for my business. And I showed you two examples, one of a retail business and one of a service business. And here's the key thing. Those things only work when you do them. And I want you to understand that, is that what you've got to do is you've got to work on the exercise, go through it, create a cash flow forecast, and adjust it as it goes along. Because what happens, and I think we're going to just be very, very careful of this, all of us are guilty, including myself, is sometimes we'll learn something new, but what we don't do is implement, and these things only work when you implement. So make sure that you try some of these things, try them and test them. So let's discuss some of the issues that come up with small business owners. one of the things that I think all of us need to think about, and maybe if you'd like to, you can type a couple of things into the chat here. But what are the unique challenges that small business owners are going through now? Or what are some of the unique challenges that you are going through now that you'd like some advice? And feel free to post that in the chat and I'll try and answer for you. But some of the situations that I can think of, for example, is one of the first ones is the interest rates. I don't know if anybody was listening, but yesterday, the Fed increased the interest rates by another quarter percent, which now makes the interest rates about 5%. And usually that means that we're going to be paying more because we're small business owners. So that's one of the unique issues and something that you need to address as a business owner. Because if you have any loans or if you have any mortgages or anything like that, straight away, what's happened is you've incurred this new expense. You've incurred this new expense. Your bank is going to increase the interest rates. And this is something that has a direct impact on you straight away. So these are some of the things that we need to deal with. And, what happens often as business owners, we don't focus on those things. I don't on a regular basis go into my bank statement and see what my interest rates are. But I encourage you to go and check it out. I am lucky that I don't owe the banks money, but I still went recently, maybe a couple of weeks ago, just to see what were the interest rates specifically for my business. And I must be honest, they've gone up a lot, which, can have a big impact on a lot of our small businesses. So that is the first thing that we're going to think about. The second thing that one of the challenges we're facing is inflation. And it really depends on what industry you're in. But there's no doubt in my mind that inflation is still very, very high. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I don't know if it's going to disappear by the end of the year, because that's what people are expecting, that the interest rates come down, the inflation rate comes down, all of those things, but we're not sure if that's going to happen. So it's something that we're going to be aware of. And one of the things that has a direct impact on are the prices we charge for our products or services. Just be very, very careful. You could be undercharging for your products or services. And this happens to me quite regularly, actually. Clients will contact me. I had an example this morning, and I run some webinars for them. And I said to them, what's their budget? And I said to them, with the inflation rate and things, the way things are changing, we can't be charging the same prices we were charging last year or the year before. And these are some of the things that you've got to understand as a business owner that you and I didn't have to deal with. We didn't have to deal with them last year. We didn't have to deal with them some of you for the last 10 years. Some of you in your business, you've never had to deal with inflation like you've got now. And it's something that's important. You've got to understand this, because now your profit margin's got to keep up, but also your revenue's got to keep up. Whatever the inflation rate is in your industry, your growth has got to maintain. And you've got to understand this. The other thing that all of us are dealing with, maybe not directly in our business, but it's inflation in our own home. Just think of it. If you own a home with a mortgage and you've got a family to bring up, I guarantee you now, your expenses over the last year have probably increased by 20 or 25%. Your mortgage has gone up, your price of your utilities have gone up, your food has definitely gone up. And I mean, there's some valid reasons, for example, if anybody's been watching what's happening in California at the moment, where they've been having these floods. I know I was in California last year in June, and I was shocked at how dry it was. And now we have the reverse. They've had all this water, but they also produce 80 to 90% of the fruit and vegetables that are distributed across North America. So that's going to have a major impact on our household expenses. So this is really important that you understand this. Even if cash flow has not been your problem before, it is a problem for you now. It's an issue now that you need to manage. So we've got to understand these are some of the challenges we have. The other thing, and you got to understand that if I say that most of us, our expenses in our household have probably gone up 20 or 25% over the last year, and I mean, that's just the number I'm throwing out. I haven't calculated or anything like that. But you've got to understand that's happening to our customers too. And if that's happening to our customers too, basically, they're going to have less money to spend on our products or services. So this creates a unique challenge for us. And I want you to understand the importance of that is sitting back and operating your business now like you operated it 6 months ago or a year ago is not the solution. You've got to be doing things differently. You got to be changing. Some of us even have to change our business models to suit the new environment because things have changed so much. So try to identify what unique challenges you are going through in your business and try to identify what can you do to solve that problem. The next thing I want you to think about is how are you managing cash flow in your business? And I'll give you a couple of very, very basic, simplistic ways that I manage cash flow in my business. And again, just remember, I've been in business for a long time, and I think this almost creates this paranoia because my biggest obsession or biggest fear or my biggest paranoia is having cash flow problems. So there are a couple of little things that I do on a regular basis. The first thing I do is I check my bank balance regularly. Do I like checking my bank balance regularly? Absolutely not. When it's going up, I do, but not when it's going down. So just be very, very careful that, that you are trying to avoid it. And I must be honest, over the years, there have been times that I've avoided looking at my bank statement, but that doesn't help the situation. Trying to avoid the situation is not it. So regularly look at your bank statement, regularly do that. Look at your bank balance, see what's going through your credit card on a regular basis, at least once a week. And for some of you, even more. So that's the first thing. The second thing you want to do is at the end of every month, and you don't want to let these things accumulate, but at the end of every single month, what you want to do is you want to reconcile your bank account and you want to reconcile all your bank accounts, and you want to reconcile your credit card statements. This is very, very important because you want to make sure that, if something's gone through your bank account, you need to know about it. Actually, even a better idea is create alerts on your bank statement. Any of you can do this now. You go to your online banking, you can create alerts so that every single time you spend money, it sends you an alert. So I have that on my phone. So every single time I pay something or I use my credit card or my debit card, it sends me an alert and says, you've paid this amount. This is really, really helpful for things like where you've got automatic debit orders in. I know I've always had a problem as a business owner. I'd forget that, I've put in an automatic payment for my car or my insurance or whatever it is, and I've forgotten that. And then what happens is the money goes through my account. Then I realize I don't have the money. So what I have now is I have these automatic alerts, and any one of you can do it. It takes a couple of minutes to set up, but it's a really, really good idea. So that's the first thing. The second thing you want to do, which is something else I do, is I have an alert whenever my bank balance goes below a certain amount of money. So if my bank balance goes below a certain amount of money, my bank account sends me an alert, which can be really frustrating, I must be honest. It sends me an alert and says, you know what, your bank balance has gone below $500 or $200 or $1,000, whatever the number I set. And these are little things that you put in, automated things that you put in so that you know when money's going through your account. The other thing I do which is a very, very simple thing. And if you're concerned with cash flow, I would encourage you to do that too, is in your calendar. So in my calendar, when I wake up in the morning, I open my calendar and it tells me what payments are going through. So if I'm paying rent, if I'm paying payroll taxes, if I'm paying my employees, it tells me what's going through. So I've got an idea of what money's flowing through my business on a regular basis. Otherwise, what happens, and I've heard this so many times with small business owners, is they forgot about a payment, or they thought they had more money in their bank account than they had, or they've got money in their bank account thinking it's theirs and actually doesn't belong to them. They haven't paid their suppliers or whatever it is. I want you to understand it's really, really important that we create these little tools, these little systems, these little ways of doing things that, just make our life easier. And then the other one, obviously, is making sure that you update your cash flow forecast regularly. But the key thing here, I think, is that you've got to understand that managing cash flow is your responsibility. It really is. Doesn't matter that you have an accountant, doesn't matter that you have employees. This is one of your responsibilities. So you want to find, if you want to find what the key things are in your business, is how do we get more customers in our business to sell our products or services? And the second thing, how do we make sure we've got enough money to keep going? And I think these are some of the things that we need to address as business owners, and need to understand that these are all part of managing our cash flow. So cash flow is not just about doing your cash flow forecast and monitoring it. It's about doing these little things that you do on a regular basis. The next thing I want to discuss is, how do we improve our cash flow, or what have you done recently? So I'll give you a couple of really simple things that we've done, in our business. One of the first things, when we work on any project, one of the first things I want to know is how we're going to get paid. So that's one of the first things. Doesn't matter how big the project is. And sometimes we work on some really big projects, and it could have a big impact on our cash flow. So some of the things that I will do sometimes with clients is, take deposit payments, for example. That works really, really well because it's a bit of security, especially on these really big projects. So that's something that we will do, and something that we never used to do years ago. But again, I think it's something that happens as you've been in business longer, and as you get more and more confident. You know what? You say to clients, well, if you don't give us partial payment, we can't start working the project. So these are some of the things that we can do. The other thing that for us has been a game changer is accepting credit cards. And, it wasn't something that we used to always do, because we do a lot of work with governments, and we do with cities and things like that. So it wasn't something that we always did. But nowadays, it's very, very easy for anybody to set up to accept credit cards. I know, for example, we use FreshBooks, which is our accounting system, which is a very simple accounting system, nothing sophisticated at all, more really an invoicing than an accounting system. But we use that, and it was really easy for me to set up. And so every client now, we give them the option of paying us with credit cards. And these are some of the simple things you can do as a business owner, is monitor that. The other thing you can do, which I think is also really smart, is, go and visit your banker. Most banks have somebody usually that focuses on small business. They call them small business advisors or consultants or experts or whatever it is. I would encourage you to go and visit them and just see if there's some way that maybe, for example, if the interest rates, if you've got loans and things like that in your business, if there's some way they can maybe restructure your debt. just be very, very careful. Sometimes things just sound too good to be true, which is one thing that worries me. And the other thing is that people just make things really simple. I'm part of quite a few small business Facebook groups. And one of the things that really frustrate me is when they'll have a posting, people will say, you know what, we can give you a bank loan, doesn't matter how much the amount is, and we respond within 24 hours. And they make it sound so easy. They make it sound so easy to raise money for a small business, whereas the reality is very, very different. I want you to understand this, is that borrowing money for a small business has always been difficult. It has never been easy. And I don't think it will ever get easy. So that's the first thing. The second thing, especially now that we've had a couple of these banks collapsing, what's going to happen is that some of these banks are just going to tighten their regulations. That's what they're going to do. They're going to make it. So it's always been, in my opinion, it's always been very difficult for small businesses to raise money. I think it's going to get more difficult. And one of the best examples actually is this Silicon Valley Bank, because they were one of the bankers that dealt with startups. So they used different ways of, or different guidelines or different ways of approving loans. So I want you to understand that raising money for a business is always, for a small business, has always been difficult. And I don't think it'll ever get easy, just so you understand that. And don't assume, and I know some people make this assumption, that it's not fair. And you're right, it's not fair, but business is not fair. These people that have the money don't want to give it to small business, which is one of the biggest challenges. So, and we discussed this on Tuesday, but one of the things that you and I need to learn very, very quickly as small business owners is that if we're having a cash flow problem, we need to try and identify what is that problem. And usually these are the main ones. Firstly, sales, for example. But sometimes the little things. I know I walk regularly and I walk along main streets, very, very often. And often I'll walk past small business owners and I'll think to myself is, if you just did a few little things better, you would probably make more profit. And this is what you've got to be very, very careful of, is that sometimes it's the basics we do wrong that has an impact on our sales and revenue. So just be very, very careful of that. Every now and then, maybe get a few business owners that are your friends to come and evaluate your business. Look at your business, look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses, and more importantly, look at the opportunities for growth. You've got to be doing that on a regular basis. Because sometimes what happens, and this happens very, very often, is because we've been in a business for a long time, we ignore little things that are not important to us, but are important to our customers. The second thing for businesses like mine is we've got to make sure that we collect our money. And we must never apologize for collecting our money. I would rather lose a customer than not collect my money. And very, very often, I ask business owners this question. I say to them, have you ever sold something and not been paid for it? And there's always 2 or 3 people in the cast who will say yes. And I ask them, how did that make you feel? And they always say it makes you feel miserable and horrible and all that type of stuff. And I say to business owners, never forget that feeling. It's very, very important that we understand that we've got to become good collectors of our debts. Because if we neglect, collecting money, or we too soft, or we feel sorry for people, whatever it is, they will take advantage of us. And you've got to be very, very careful. I was having this discussion yesterday with a business owner, and hers wasn't collecting money related, but it was about employees. She's having this discussion with me, and I can hear that she's feeling sorry for this employee and feeling sorry for that employee, whatever it is. And one employee specifically She was having a problem with the last time I spoke to her. I meet with her once a month. I run a coaching program where I meet with her once a month. And last month I said to her, you know what, I think you should get rid of this employee. Now, this meeting, I asked her, so what happened to the employee? She said, well, we got rid of her. And it sounded like she was very happy to leave. And I said to her, there you go. You were so concerned about laying this person off. The truth was they realized that they were not performing. And because they were not performing, when you laid them off, it wasn't a bad thing for them. They were probably not enjoying the job and you were not enjoying employing them. So just be very, very careful of sometimes being too emotional. Not that you mustn't be empathetic, but you don't want to be too emotional in a business. You know, the reality is you are there to make profit. If somebody's bought a product or service from you and they owe you money, they need to pay you. If somebody's offered to buy a product or service from you and they want a discount and you don't feel comfortable or you don't think it's the right thing offering them a discount, just don't do it. Rather walk away and not do the business. So just be very, very careful of that, because empathy is good, but just be very careful of being, too soft in business is what I'm thinking about. The next thing is your expenses. I think there's a big, big opportunity now for small business to renegotiate, for example, with your landlord. Is that the most comfortable thing to do? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's very, very humbling where you have to go back to your landlord and say, you know what, I want a discount on my rent. The truth is, if you've always been a good client, or if you've always been a good tenant, you want to make sure that you keep your clients. And I think this is really important that you understand this, that good landlords want good tenants, so they will negotiate. So that's something you can do. We discussed bad inventory management on Tuesday and growing too fast. But all of these things are the main reasons we go into cash flow problems. I just want to move forward from this slide and discuss just something here quickly, and I'll come back to this section. The other thing that I think is really, really important is that you build a relationship with advisors in your business. One of the most important people that can help you through difficult times as a business owner is your accountant. And I want you to understand the importance of having a good accountant. And what does that mean? A good accountant means somebody that creates financial statements for you, but more importantly, explains to you what is going on in your business. And here's my advice to you, is build a relationship with your accountant. Really build a relationship with your accountant. Because many times over the years, for my sins, I've run workshops for different accounting groups. And I will speak to these accountants and they'll say to me that often small business owners don't meet with them. And some of you on this webinar are just like that. And you've got to understand your accountant is not there just to do your financial statements. Your accountant has experience often in the industry, and they can share best practices and things like that. But again, like anything, I think you as a business owner need to keep learning so that if an expert, like an accountant, gives you advice, you don't have to always agree with him. They don't know everything. None of us actually know everything. So I think your approach is always try and educate yourself as much as possible so that when you speak to a professional like an accountant, you can ask the right questions and they can help you, deal with certain situations that you're going through in your business. The second thing the second person that I think is really, really important in your business is to build a relationship with your banker. So my banker's name is Mario, nice guy, just at the local bank. When we were downtown, he was near our business. And I used to go and see Mario regularly, and just casually. It wasn't always business. I would go there and I discussed different things with him. But here's the advantage of having somebody like that, is that they can educate you. And I know Mario used to do this all the time. I would say to him, I'm buying some real estate. How do you think I should finance it? And we had more like this one-on-one relationship. I never saw him really as a banker. Obviously, in the beginning, when I first met him, he was just another banker. But over time, we built this relationship. And I think it's a very, very important relationship, because your banker cannot always help you if you need money, but they can advise you about the best way or the best process to go through. So this is why building up a relationship specifically with your small business banker, because they have specialized knowledge or specialized experience, or they understand some of the challenges that small businesses face. But also just remember, they always, I think, struggle with this thing, is they'll say, you'll see it on TV, we give money to small business, or you see it in ads and all this type of stuff, and then you go and see your small business banker, and it's not always the case. But I think as an advisor, I think it is very, very important to have a banker and to build a relationship with them. I think it's really good. And so the relationship you have with your banker and your accountant, I think, is a really, really important. The next one is to find mentors. And I think this is really, really important for any business owner. And I'm part of this program where I mentor and coach business owners. And this has happened to me quite a few times, is I'll meet with a business owner 2 or 3 times, and then decide, no, that, I don't think I'm the right mentor or coach for them. And I'll tell them. And some of them will get upset and whatever it is. But the reality is that you want to try and find people that improve your skills. You don't want a mentor or a coach that just agrees with everything you say. You want them to advise you and guide you. And for those of you that don't have one yet, I encourage you to seek out a mentor. There are a couple of programs. I know, for example, there's a program specifically for female entrepreneurs out of Vancouver that works really, really well. Is it called the Forum, I think? It works really, really well. They've got quite a good structured system where people can get mentors. But I encourage you to find 1 or 2, even 3 mentors in your community, maybe in your family, that you can go to on a regular basis. Because I think that, these people are generalists, but often they have experience in business that, because they've been business owners for a long time, that they can share with you. I know, for example, yesterday I was having this discussion when it came to employing people. And what I said to this businesswoman, I said, you know what, you shouldn't be recruiting people. I can see, firstly, you don't like it. You're concerned that the decisions you make may not be the right decision. And I'm quite blunt and straightforward, I think sometimes, I know. And I said to her, I can see that you've made so many mistakes along the way. Maybe there's somebody in your company that can do it better than you. She said, I have this operations manager that is very blunt, straightforward, and she's good at doing it. I said, well, then let her do the recruitment. That doesn't mean you don't approve of the person, but let her do the recruitment. And sometimes that is exactly what you need as a business owner. Is just somebody that can say to you, you know what, that's not the way you should be doing it. Rather do this, choose that person, and decide on that. Because we don't want to admit, and I think this is one of the biggest problems we have, is often we don't want to admit that we don't have those skills. The reality is there's no way you can have all of the skills. There's just no way you can be good at everything, okay? And I want you to understand, as your business grows and scales, you want to try and identify those things that you are really good at doing, and you want to focus on those things. It also makes business more fun. I could hear when I was having this discussion with her about recruiting, it's not something she enjoys doing. It's something she dislikes, and she's doing it just because, she's assumed she's a small business owner. Like anything, we do everything because sometimes we have no option, or we just think we have to do it. The other thing that I think is something that is really, really useful in all of our communities across Ontario is we have these small business centers. And there's some really, really good ones. I work with maybe about 10 of them across the province, and they do a really good job of supporting small business. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that they have local knowledge. So for example, this program, or this program that's now coming to an end, is the My Main Street program. So small business centers will know about these programs. They will know about these programs available to small business. They'll also know about local funding for small business, because it really depends on where your business is based. If you're in a bigger city, sometimes it's even more difficult to raise money than if you're in a smaller city. But these small business centers will often know what's available locally. They also have statistics about, your community and things like that. And I encourage you to use them as a resource. It's free. You've paid for it already with your taxes, and it's amazing what they can help you with. And often they're very, very good referrers. So they can refer you to a good accountant. They can refer you to a banker. They can help you find a mentor, a coach. They can tell you about different funding programs. We've got this My Main Street that's been going on for the last couple of years, but we've also got another program across Ontario called Digital Main Street, which is still carrying on. And they're both very, very good programs. But sometimes we don't know about these programs. Why don't we know about these programs? Because, I don't know, nobody tells us about them. So your local small business center is really a good resource for you. They're usually attached to economic development. It doesn't matter where you are across the province. They're usually at the city hall or nearby. And their job is to support small businesses locally, which is a really, really important part of the economy. So you've got to understand that. The other thing that I want to discuss, which is quite a bit of a problem for a lot of small businesses, is funding. I'm here to tell you that money or funding for small businesses always been difficult. We've been in business for 20 years. So this business specifically, BizLaunch. When I started 20 years ago, I couldn't even get a credit card for my business. And you've got to understand, I'm an experienced business owner. I've been doing this most of my life. So you've got to understand that getting money early on in a business can be very, very challenging. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and this is one of my concerns, is perception and reality are two different things. The perception often is that there are a lot of grants for small business owners. And what happens is there's a lot of websites. You'll go onto Facebook, or you'll see ads on Instagram or Facebook or on Google speaking about grants. I want you to understand that most of those resources you can get for free on the government website. So a lot of these companies will charge. And I often say to small business, here's a couple of red flags. Small business owners will come to me and they'll say to me, Andrew, I've been approved for a grant. And I'll say, who's the company that's helped you do this? And they'll tell me. And then I'll say to them, and they've said to you that you need a better business plan. They say, yes. I said, and they're going to charge you for it. And what happens is that a lot of companies across Canada actually in North America, have realized that this is a good way, because that word free money, grants, is a big motivator for small businesses. So what I want you to understand as a business owner is that all of these grants that are available, especially through governments, they're public knowledge. It's not like you have to go to a separate organization and pay them $500 for a subscription for them to send you what grants are available. And some of them are really, really smart. There's one specifically that I can think of. When you go to their website, it even looks like a government website. So you assume that you're getting a government grant through this program, where the catch is they'll say to you, but it costs you $600 a year to subscribe and we'll send you valid grants. So here's my advice to you. You don't need to go to any of these companies or organizations. You can go directly to the Government of Canada website. They've got a link there for business grants and financing. And then ask your local small business center. So ask your local small business center if these grants are legit, and that'll help you. Also, there's, for example, we've got a thing called STRED credits. I'm hoping that one day the government will get rid of all these programs, because I think they create more confusion than anything else. And I'm not always a fan of governments handing out money to select organizations. For example, we've been in business for 20 years. We've never got a government grant, except, there's always an except. Last year during COVID, when they came up with these CBA loans, and it was a soft loan that the governments came out with, we took advantage of that. But otherwise, I've never got a grant. And the reason is that sometimes I've realized over the years, the effort it takes to apply for these grants and stick with them and whatever it is not worth it. So I'm not saying to you, you mustn't apply for government grants. I mean, the My Main Street is a great program, for example. You know, they'll give you a $10,000 non-repayable amount of money, which is, why would you not take advantage of that? Or Digital Main Street. But these, you know, these are well-known programs that are branded, that have got, that are legit programs, that have a process and things like that. So those programs I'm okay with. Just be very, very careful of just finding a program on Instagram or Facebook or some Google ad, and they ask for money up front. So just be very, very careful of that. But what the government has done, it's created specific loans for small businesses. So one of them is the Small Business Financing Act. So you can go to your local bank, your local commercial bank. In the US, it's called the SBA loans. In Canada, they're called the Small Business Financing Act. Actually, the name changes depending on who's in government. So I think that's what they're called now. But if you go to your local bank, your small business advisor at your local bank, and say to them, I'm looking for financing for my business, they will often refer to this program. Again, yes, the advantage of the program is that it's easier to get funding. Yes, the disadvantage of the program is that the interest rates are usually higher. So keep that in mind. The second resource that we have is the Business Development Bank of Canada. Now, I have never borrowed money from the BDC, but I have heard over the years of different businesses that have used them for financing. And a lot of times for real estate, actually, now that I think about it, the three examples that I can think about are where business owners want to grow, they want to invest in real estate to grow their businesses, and they use the BDC. So I would encourage you to check them out. Again, government organization, which is a bit of security and things like that, so you check it out. And then the third program, which I really, really like, is the Futurepreneur program. So the Futurepreneur program, it gives you a loan, not a grant, but gives you a loan of $15,000. And then they've got an extra portion that you can apply for. I think it could be 30,000 or 40. They change the numbers. So if I was you, I would do research on these things. But here's the thing I want you to understand with all of these programs. And if anybody's got any questions, just put them in the chat and I'll try and answer them. But I always say buyer beware. I'm always wary of any free money. I always think it comes with conditions, but there are exceptions. Okay, so the My Main Street program, which I really like, and the Digital Main Street program, which I really like, and then these other financing programs are available. They are legit programs available to small business, and you should check them out. Actually, I would go as far as saying, even if you don't need to borrow money, I would check them out. And the reason I would check them out is because you don't know what the future holds for you. So you may need money in the future, and so you can do your research now. The other one, which is a bit of a challenge, is things like angel investors and things like that. I know a bunch of people now that are trying to raise money, and it's become very, very difficult the last 12 months, okay? And it's got a lot to do with the economy. It's got a lot to do with even this bank collapsing now. It's got a lot to do with those things, the interest rates going up. So raising money for small business is going to be a little bit of a challenge, I think, especially this year and maybe for the next 3 years. But the most important thing I want you to understand is that information about business grants and financing is available on the government websites. Doesn't matter where you are, even if you're based somewhere else in North America, the government has these resources. But just make sure it's a government website, not just a random person. And there's a lot of these that have started up. They've created databases of grants available. You pay, some of them you pay, some of them you don't pay. I'd get confused. And I get very, very nervous when people recommend them, especially if you don't know. Oh, so here's this program that I was speaking about called the Canada Small Business Financing Program. This is a really good program, okay? So there you go, there's the information. Up to $1 million for any one borrower, of which that no more than $350,000 can be used to purchase leasehold improvements. So there's a source of funding for small business owners across the province. Again, where did I find this information? On the Government of Canada website. So they've got websites with all of this information on. I didn't go and look for random websites that claim to have databases and things like that. And a lot of these guys have been around for years, but a lot of them come and go. I've seen actually quite a few of them just come and go over the last 5 years, which is really frustrating because I know that a lot of them, there's no way you can just make money by just advising people on getting government grants. So they usually charge a fee for this, and usually an exorbitant fee. So just be very, very careful of that. Just one thing I want to go back with quickly that I didn't touch on this screen over here when it comes to managing inventory. And this is especially important for retail type businesses, is what are the things that we used to do? So let me just go back a little bit. When I was in retail many years ago now, I started off as a small privately owned retail store, okay? So your little typical convenience store would be the best way to explain it. Just little convenience store, that's where I started off. And then my business started growing, and eventually we built it into quite a big business, which is over 1,000 square meters or 10,000 square foot today. And the way we grew it was we joined this voluntary trading group, very much like RGA in North America. It was called SPAR in Europe. And this really, really helped me as a business owner. I must be honest, it was the amount I learned from going, starting off as an ordinary business owner that was running my own business to being part of this group. It's not a franchise group, but it's a similar concept, where your branding is standardized and things like that. It was really, really good for me as a business owner. And the reason was it was almost like my education. This is why I have a very, very good understanding nowadays, and I can help a lot of business owners understand gross profit margin, sales per square foot, all of those things, merchandising and all that. even though I was a retailer 25 years ago, the basics of retail don't change over the years. Maybe the range of products, maybe the technology we use, but the basics of retail do not change. It's about creating a good customer experience and wowing customers. But the one thing that I really learned early on as a retailer was the importance of good profit margins. And secondly, managing my inventory. Because I very, very quickly realized that if I didn't manage my inventory, there would be two key issues in my business. The one would be that I'd have a cash flow problem. And the second one is that I'd run out of stuff. So the most important products that I needed in my store, I would run out of them, which would frustrate my customers and they wouldn't come back. So what we used to do is I used to manage our stock turns. We used to have a number. And in those days, in retail, we used to try and get 12 stock turns a year. So let me explain that to you. If we do $1 million a year, no, wait, let me just use an easier number to divide. If we do $1.2 million a year, on average, your inventory should be $100,000. So you're getting 12 stock turns a year. You take your sales divided by your average inventory. And I used to know that number off by heart. And I used to measure it all the time. And one of my goals was to increase our numbers. So 12 was the industry average. But if you got it to 13 or 14 and kept your customers happy, that was absolutely brilliant. I became obsessed with numbers. And one of the things, and all of you have heard this before, if you haven't, I'm going to repeat it for you. What you can measure, you can manage. And as a business owner, this is very, very important. And this is why, even on these webinars and all of my training, one of the things that I try and emphasize is the importance of measuring things. Creating an income statement so that you can check, how am I doing? Looking at your cash flow so you can see, do I need more money? Or how much money do we have available to us? And will we run out of money? Or balance sheet or any of those type of things. But when you have numbers, you can measure things. So one of the tools, one of the numbers you can measure are your stock turns. And it's not really difficult to do. You take your total cost of sales, which was on your income statement last year, and you divide by your average inventory. That'll give you stock turns. Or you can take your sales amount divided by your inventory at selling price. But the idea here is to get a number that you can measure. And if you grow and have 2 stores instead of 1, you can compare one against the other. The other thing you need to do, which is something that I never used to have in my day, was cheap technology that every single small business has nowadays. We used to still count inventory and do all those things. Nowadays, you have very affordable point-of-sale systems that'll give you the information that you need to be able to see if a product is selling or not. But it takes discipline. You've got to make sure that when inventory comes into your store, you enter it into your system and then measure the results afterwards. But you can have printouts on a daily basis telling you which products are selling and which products are not selling. So use a point-of-sale system, use an inventory tracking system, and then use just-in-time practices. What does this mean? So the JIT system was created by the Japanese at Toyota, actually a Toyota, not by the Japanese, but a Japanese company. And what happened is Toyota, when they first started, I remember as a kid, we used to always talk about Japanese junk. And the Japanese, one of the things that they realized is that to become world-class brands, they needed to work on creating the best possible car. And it's really interesting because the Japanese did it with Toyota, but so did Korea do it with Hyundai. And one of the things that the Japanese did to improve their cash flow is they created this just-in-time system. And it was really, really interesting because the basic principle of this is you buy and ship inventory as close to the sales date as possible. And for me, this was really, really important, even when I was in retail, is that we wanted to make sure that we didn't have too much inventory and we were turning over our inventory fast. So I really like businesses that turn their inventory over fast, where you can create systems and processes and you can manage your inventory so you don't have too much inventory tied up. So I'm very afraid, and maybe some of you have heard me saying over the months, of businesses that have inventory that just lies around for a long time, because this is some of the challenges. I mean, one of these strategies that fashion businesses use is, having sales every year. But even that, I'm concerned about that when the business owner doesn't know what the impact of the sales are. Does anybody have any questions? Otherwise, I'm just going to summarize. This is the last event of this series, and I've really enjoyed hosting these webinars and masterminds over the last year or so. And one of the things that I say to all small business owners is we should never stop learning. Doesn't matter how long you've been in business, doesn't matter how many years you've been in business, is none of us know everything. And I think if you're honest with yourself, as a business owner, you can keep learning. And I encourage you, as a business owner myself, to keep going to webinars, to keep going to seminars, to keep going to trade shows, to keep going to conferences, to keep learning, because these are opportunities. But you've got to understand the nuts and bolts of running a business. And it can be very, very challenging. So Linda's asked a question that I don't know the answer to, is for how long will the recordings be available on the website? Linda, they'll be available on the website for a while, okay? So I wouldn't be too concerned, but not forever, but Chris can maybe answer this question, but probably another few months they will be there, okay? So Linda, my advice to you is regularly watch those. Also, I encourage you, I mentioned this earlier on, but I encourage you, if you want to keep learning, is your local small business center will often have events. I know I work with quite a few small business centers across the province, and I encourage you to reach out to them. There you go. So Chris says, to his knowledge, the website will be live until December 2023. Okay, so that's a good thing. So you've got till the end of this year to watch the recordings. Thank you for that, Chris. But I would encourage you to go to your local small business center. Also keep reading. I read a lot, and I'm always learning. I mean, I bought 3 books last week on marketing and storytelling and things like that. And I realized that even as a business owner, being a business owner my whole life, I can keep learning. And I encourage you to keep learning. I encourage you to reach out to other business owners in your community, on your main street, in your family, among your friends, and help each other. If you've been successful as a business owner, help other business owners. I think all of us can help each other, educate each other, learn about finding supplies, little things that we've done, and don't be afraid to teach people, because the more you teach, the more you learn. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending this event today. And thank you very much for attending them over the last year, over the last few months. Hopefully, I will see you again on one of my webinars. I'm going to take a break for another week or two, and then I will probably come up with some more topics. But keep looking out for some learning opportunities. Have a great afternoon, and thanks for joining me, everyone.